After a long lockdown period, it was time to get the boats on the water. So we prepared the Duncan, and this was a frame that we built at the club to lift the boats on and off trailers and launch them down at the day. Designed by Duncan Swinson, who you can actually look up and get details off because he is selling the design for small clubs, which is great. It's manual work, but it works fantastic, and it really does do the job. It is assessed at 4 ton, and the only reason it's assessed to 4 ton is because that's the only weights we had. But it will lift a lot heavier, but obviously we stick within the guidelines of the actual recommendations. The first boat to be lifted is Puffin. It belongs to David Goddard, and that obviously is one of the lower drafts. We're only launching today all the low draft boats, mainly because the tide won't be high enough on the beach to lift the bigger boats. It's one of our disadvantages. Normally we would launch in March when we have the big springs, 10 metre tides, but unfortunately it's down just over 8 metres today, and that won't be enough to lift the boats at this stage off the beach. So therefore we keep to the smaller boats, and today we're launching 5, which it's a beautiful day, quite calm, and we don't expect any real problems. The second boat here is the next highest tide saw the bigger boats going on the water, which is this my boat, Salt and Spirit, and then all with a metre draft, but we had a 9.4, 9.5 metre tide, so we could get the boats on. And this is the process that we use to do this, putting all the bigger boats on the water at this time. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't as nice as the previous weeks, but having said that, we were so desperate to get out there and get sailing. Account of launch day, or second launch day, by a bystander who was on the edge of the beach. Well, I say bystander, it's Chris Weston, one of our ex-Commodores, and he gave a good account of the full day. Here's his account. Fascinating day on the slipway today. I should have taken photos to add to the scene, but regrettably didn't. Watched the 5 launchies lift off and head to their moorings. Taffy was the beach master in his new waders, helping all the cats off and the inflators ashore. Some success, some with failures. President Ian, in his new Blaze dinghy, got off, but the main sheet broke and he drifted down towards Sally's cottage, where he met Rick, whose outboard failed and was bringing his dinghy and accessories back up the beach. So they shared Blaze to haul it back to the slip. Treasure Jonathan launched his mirror, but the trailer snapped in half. Swapped trailers and eventually got off for a sail. Vice Commodore Andy Potter launches his A-Class cat, bought from an Australian at the A-Class Worlds, and remembered he'd forgotten his daggerboards. Taffy left holding the boat waist deep while daggerboards retrieved, and he then got off for a high-speed sail. Matt launches his Tornado cat, but returns with the jib halyard broke and a rudder hanging off. Meanwhile, darts are launching and heading back and forth of various states. Then the inflatables start returning from the cruisers. Malcolm all dry and composed, Andy beaming with delight after finally launching, Emma and Darren, Barry, all soaked, not having sailed, but not deterred. Duncan gotten for a sail, so still out enjoying the opportunity. Adam ashore, but leaving Roy aboard with a mooring problem. James ashore, but with clairvoyant Gert, so worrying. And this all in semi-lockdown with crowds of public on the cliff and beaches. What will happen when the sailing really starts? Chris Weston.
Do you want to tie that anchor up? Get away! We're not!
The boat having lifted, we start to move forward. Now the tide's lifted us, and that's just an hour, well, in fact less than an hour before high water, so we just managed to get off the beach there. And we now head out towards the mooring buoy. I know there's a problem with the mooring buoy because the sand over the winter period has covered the main riser on the mooring, but I'm hoping the boat will pull it up. We're not sure about it. I've put a few bigger buoys on to try and lift it, and I've shackled those to the base of the chain that I can see, and hopefully that would lift it. I've been out and checked it just before we went out when it was dry, and that it seems to have raised a bit, but not a lot. It's given me an extra 2-3 foot. So I'm hoping the boat, once we attach the boat to it, it'll start to pull the chain out of the sand. But we don't know until we try it, so we just wait and see.
See the little one dead ahead. See the big blue one? Come back. Why do you get a smaller one?
This is where the fun began. Adam managed to get hold of the buoy first time and then start to pull it up. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to pull enough of the buoy onto the boat, and therefore we struggled. And I just kept on pushing the boat forward, trying to give him more room to pull. But unfortunately this was a very, very difficult task. So whilst Adam continued to pull and we just moved the boat backwards and forwards, trying to give it some more tension and pull out the chain from the sand, we literally struggled. And this whole process, believe it or not, just took over 3.5 hours. As I walked to the front to give Adam a hand and try and pull more rope up, because the strop was a good 6 feet further down under the water. The rope was quite thin and I was afraid that that rope would snap. And as I kicked over the boat hook, and that was that. So it was fine, it floated, so I thought, okay, quick, get back, get in the dinghy and go after it as it floats downriver.
So I moved backwards and then got back to the dinghy, making sure that I've got everything and my radio with me just in case, and then pulled the dinghy in, got into the dinghy, and off I went. Unfortunately, as I started to float out towards the dinghy, motored out towards the dinghy, it sank, and that was the last I saw of another boat hook. Always, I've decided in future I will keep a line and attach it to the boat. Once back aboard the boat, it was time to see if we could sort this mooring out once and for all. Adam had managed by this time to pull some more of the rope back on board, including the boy, and the job now was to pull this up. You can see it was a very thin line that was holding the boat. Using a variety of tactics, we decided to see whether we could get more of the line up and then get the strop on board. First of all, we tried starting the engine and moving the boat forwards to see whether we could actually lift more rope onto the bow of the boat, but even that proved difficult because we were actually just riding over the rope. And so then we thought, oh, we'll try and pull the rope with the boat, pull it backwards, but I wasn't keen on that because you saw the thickness of the rope. We thought that'll snap, and if that snapped I would lose both the
Yeah, it looks
strap
like I'll have to come out anyway because,
and that'd disappear and we'd just float off.
Just put the anchor down.
We'd already dropped the anchor, but of course we could only drop that in situ, so the boat would have to go back a long way before it started to dig in. So that was another issue, and all we did really was wait it out and let the boat bounce up and down on the sea and hopefully jerk the riser chain out of the sand. It was obviously very well dug in, very well buried, because it just wouldn't happen, you know, regardless of how many times we tried, how many times the boat bounced up and down, it would not budge. We tried everything. Adam pulled when there was time to free and wrapped maybe a half turn round the cleat again, and that hopefully would put more strain on it and lift it again. And it worked. It was a very slow process. The whole effort, to be honest with you, took just over 3.5 hours before we managed to do anything at all. It was best at this point that Adam made his way back with the dinghy back to land, so that he could get the dinghy and the engine off. Otherwise it would have meant us trawling the dinghy over the mud and the engine, and that would not have been a nice walk back, because sometimes you can sink literally up to your knees in mud, and we didn't want to do that, although we'd have the dinghy to sit on if there was a problem. So it was decided at this point that Adam should go back, I would sit with the boat and wait until the actual tide dropped, and I'd be able to get out and try and dig the chain up by hand if necessary. But there was nothing else we could do at this stage but to wait, so it was decided that that would be the plan for the next couple of hours. I was sitting and contemplating my navel, as you do when you've got nothing else to do, just waiting for the tide to go out. It suddenly dawned on me that I could rig up another rope and drop it over the strop itself, and that way give me more security instead of that one thin line. And so what I decided to do was get a stronger rope, slightly thicker, form a loop and drop it down over the ropes, slide it down using a weight so that it went over the strop, and once over the strop I could pull that tight enough to be able to pull the strop on board once the tide was dropping. So this was the plan. Number one, form a loop that would pull tight when pulled, and drop that down the main line. Over the strop, number two, with the weight, it's got a weight on it so it sinks quite fast, otherwise you'd be there for quite a while. And then number three, pull tight as you can pull it without it coming back up, and then that will grab the strop and tightly fitted, and then you're able to attach another line to the boat, which made me feel a lot better. And this effort gave me two lines, so I was able to pull the first line that was attached and then the second, and so on until it came up. Feeling a lot better now, resting back. I was able to just take in the view. Now I've got my strap on board, and here's Kingfisher with the youngest sailor of the year coming towards us. He's not navigating, I don't think he is anyway, but he's just turned one, I think, and so I don't think he's in charge at the moment, but it will be in a couple of years' time without a doubt. And he's out for a pleasant sail when I'm confined to sitting on the mooring and just letting it take its toll now until I can walk off. The next time out of the boat was time to go sailing, and off we were. This is our first shakedown sail. This is a visualization of the channel markers as we come from the fishing boats. As you leave them going down the channel. This is looking back, and you can see the channel markers quite clearly. Those, if you can see them, they're just there and there, and then you follow those out till you get to what's known as Caldy Steps, which is, I don't know whether you can see that, just where the cars are. People are at Caldy Steps, and then you see two buoys here, and that's when you turn to port as you're going out, and you can see the black can there. And then you just follow, you see the buoys ahead of that, you just follow that channel then out. That's the safest way out. Of course, you know, when the tide's coming in, you can go out using a whole host of different ways, but it's coming back that is the important step. This is the Caldy Curve buoy that should be taken to the port when going out, and starboard when coming in. And just head out, follow the channels up. You see the black and green on the port side, and you'll see another big can, which is not. You follow these buoys and you head out between the two buoys as you're going out, and you'll see a row of buoys forming the channel all the way to the safe water mark. That's the best way to go out. Obviously, when you're coming in, it's the reverse order. Find the safe water mark, find the channel coming down towards Caldy Steps. You still can see Caldy Steps from a distance, and then you head down the channel and then take the Caldy Curve buoy on the starboard side. Go on, you're alright.
Will it be alright?
Yeah.
How will it go around? Will it bend?
No. Now the idea is to pull the sails up.
Oh, bring it down.
And obviously lazy jacks can be a bit of a problem if you're not head to wind. So the idea was to try and pull around head to wind. But we had all sorts of issues. The main ones being the reefing system. This is a Selden in-boom reefing system, and I don't know whether other people have had problems, but I have had endless problems. I thought it was me until we hired a boat up in Scotland, a much bigger boat that had exactly the same system, and we had exactly the same problems. They are very difficult to adjust, and they take a lot of power. You have to use the winches to adjust them. They're not easy at all. To be honest with you, I'm really contemplating ripping the whole lot out and fitting just lines that go to the sail, because I have had several attempts at this. I've got an earlier video where I show how I fitted everything, and I've reduced the thickness of the lines because there was some very thick lines on first on the reefing system. I've reduced the thickness of those. That has made it better, but certainly not as good as it could be. So I think it may be time to rethink that whole system. It's like Rye coming up is where I stepped right off the top deck into the cockpit, which is about 4 or 5 foot, and that was very painful to say the least.
Come on, carry on.
Is that up?
I think so, it's nearly up, isn't it? Pull it a bit tighter, I think. These reefs are a pain in the neck. No question about it. Yeah, that's not bad. That's okay. That's all right. That's fine, thank you. Police off the other things.
We started off with 3-4 knots of wind, which quickly died once we got the sails fully up and everything ready, to just under 1 knot of wind, which then died completely to 0. So we were just drifting backwards really, but at the same time we managed to sort out some of the, because I'd left a lot of length on the ropes because I'd renewed some of the ropes, and I'd left endless lengths, so we could, when we were sailing, we could measure everything up. And here I'm adjusting the furling line, so once I pull the foresail out, I will know how much to take off the furling line, and that was the main thing, to get that to the right length. Previously you will have seen ropes hanging from the boom, and they were the reefing sheets to make sure that they were the right size as well, so I managed to do all of that.
Want me to put it around the way?
What's stopping it? It's alright, yeah. Fine. Fine. Right. Now that's fully coiled in now. Just take that to the winch for me, please. Take that to the winch. And then just cut it right there, yeah, I think. Let's do this.
We're doing it now, isn't it? Over.
Starter battery was dead. I had the warning going off all the way out and it went off. So I'm assuming it's charged the battery back up. She was dead, all the electric just went dead.
At this point, Malcolm on Dormis discovered there was a problem with his charging system. All the batteries were dead. We discussed it, and he maintained that the best thing to do was to go back in and keep his engine running, really. There wasn't much wind, so there wasn't, there's very little else you could get done. You couldn't find very much out about your boat under sail or any of the issues that may occur. So the obvious thing was to head back in, which Malcolm decided to do. We decided to stay out a bit longer, but having said that, it became obvious that we weren't going anywhere, so we then decided that we'd head back in.
We also held one answer, wants to go its own way.
Not the best day to see, test everything out, but certainly at the moment it's got nil wind. Oh, just getting up to 1.5 knots of wind.
And that was the end of our shakedown cruise, supposedly. I mean, we didn't get to test our sails out or see if anything is loose or whatever. But I mean, the main thing is she floats. We managed to sort the strap out yesterday, and we managed to get that in, put that on the engine, and the engine was working. The water was coming out. I still don't like the sound of the exhaust. It sounds hollow to me. It sounds like there's no water coming out, but everyone assures me there's plenty of water coming out. So hopefully we'll test another day. And that's all for now, folks.